Hello everyone, my name is Ahmed Mahmoud Muhammad Said Hossam and this is my lesson. Today we're talking about poetry, but before we start we need to know first what is poetry. Simply, poetry is a form of writing that uses not only words. I'm not just putting some words together and that's it, no. I'm just putting a form, imagery, pattern of sound, and figurative language. Of course, these are some difficult terms. We are going to talk and explain the meaning of these terms after a while. What's the point of poetry? Why we are writing poetry? Just remember, we are writing it to share strong feelings or a powerful message or theme with the reader himself. Just to know and to remember what is poetry, just I want you to watch this video and listen.
You are the shine in my sun. You are the bright of my day. You are the blue in my sky, the fun in my play. It's you. It's you. You're everything to me. With you I can laugh, and with you I can cry. You've brought peace and happiness into my life. It's you. Yes, it's you. You're everything to me.
Of course, you felt what is poetry. Poetry is something good, as you can see. It's different from words or any piece of writing. But remember, you're going to deal with poetic form. The form itself, we need to study what's the form. A poem's form is its shape. How we shape a poem. What it looks like. Poems are divided into lines, as you could see. Some lines together, below each other. These lines are usually grouped. We put them in a group. We call this group a stanza. It's like paragraphs, as you see in writing. Stanza function like paragraphs in a story. So we don't divide poetry into lines, we divide them into, yes, excellent, into stanzas. The key terms, as we said that we're going to talk about, we need to know about them. Some key terms like the theme. You're going to be asked about what is the theme of the poem itself. We're going to talk what is a theme. What's the tone, structure, the personal response, the language, alliteration, imagery, metaphor, simile, personification, the rhyme, the repetition, onomatopoeia, and instrument. All these terms we can gather them in this or these words. The, must, pears. Pear is the fruit, as you can see in the picture, and must means with. The, the, t means or refers to tone, and h to hyperbole, and emotive words, metaphor, onomatopoeia, imagery, simile, the theme. This is must. And pairs, P for personification, and E, as we said, for endment, and A for alliteration, R for rhyme or repetition, and S for structure. First, let's start talking about what is a tone. When I ask in the exam or the quiz, what is the tone of the poem itself? Tone is usually an emotion that the author is feeling as they write. You can hear it in the language used. For example, when we use bitter, or sad, or regretful. So these are your answers. Once I give you a poem, you will tell me, yes, I guess the tone of this poem is sad, Yes, it's a sad one, or it's regretful. Something happened and he regrets it. He feels sorry for it. So this is the tone of the poem. The poet here, or the poem here, is sad. So the poet feels sad while he's writing and reading it, or is feeling happy. These things we call them the tone of the poem. Hyperbole, pronounced hyperbole. It's another word for extreme exaggeration, and it is used to make a strong point. Okay, I'll give you an example. I felt 1,000 eyes on me as I entered the room. Of course, there were not 1,000 eyes looking at him, but this is, as we said above, exaggeration, something over, more, less. Hyperbole, remember. I've told you a million times. Of course he didn't say million times, but as we said, this exaggeration. I'm so embarrassed. I'm so embarrassed I could die. Of course no one dies from feeling embarrassed, but as we said, this is hyperbole. Emotive words. Emotive words, these are words that creates an emotion or shows a strong feeling in the reader. Of course, you know the word emotive, this word comes from the word emotion. I guess it's easy for you. For example, heroic. So when you read it, you tell me that I guess this poem was heroic, humiliation, or brave, or these words are heartless. So this is an emotion, or some words like heroic, humiliation, or brave. These words, of course, we call these words emotive words. When I ask you to pick out some emotive words. Metaphor. Sometimes you are asked to pick out a metaphor, and what is a metaphor? A metaphor, it's a figure of speech. When the question exam is gonna be pick out, or I need you to tell me a figure of speech. The metaphor compares unlike objects. It says something is something that is not. Check the example. The exam was a breeze. Of course, we're using a breeze to describe the wind, as it's light and soft, and we cannot describe the exam in this description. So that's why we call it a metaphor. So I'm comparing the exam again to the wind to show that the exam was difficult or was easy. Excellent. Yes, it was easy. Check this one too. She was my rock in this situation. She was my rock in this situation. How? You know, we know that I cannot describe a person as a rock, but here again I'm comparing this person, she, to the rock, just to show that she was supporting me in this situation. Again, we call this metaphor. Your brother is a pig. Of course, this is a comparison. I'm comparing my brother to this animal, a pig, just to show something. I guess that is not something good, as you can see. Yes, so when we compare something to something, we say that something is something that is not. We call this metaphor. Onomatopoeia. What's this? This is the use of words whose sounds suggest the meaning. Whose sounds suggest the meaning? Check this one. Bang. We always hear this word, bang, bang. What's this? Bang, bang? This is a song. Yes, when you describe the sound of the shots, the bullet shots, bang, bang, bang. So with the word itself, you can hear something. This word chuckle or splash. Splash, for example, for water. So once you hear the splash of the word splash, of course you can feel the sound within this word. If you have a word which make you or give you this sound, we call this word onomatopoeia. Imagery. Imagery is usually descriptive language. It allows you to create a picture in your mind with the poet's words. So we are using some words, but while you're reading these words, there is an image, a picture in your mind. You're trying to imagine what was happening as if you were there. listening, even sometimes you're smelling everything. I'm giving you an image, a picture in your mind. For example, check this one. I felt like the flowers were waving a hello. The flowers were waving. How? I know this, like we said in the last slide or the previous slides, we're talking about comparing the flower to someone waving. It's like a comparison. But remember, this is, I'm giving you an image here this time. The image as if someone was waving with hands, so creating an image in your mind. A host of golden daffodils, group of daffodils, these the yellow flowers. And remember, they were beside the lake and beneath the trees, under the tree, fluttering, dancing and moving. Of course, I cannot feel or I cannot see this, the flower. These flowers are dancing and moving, but here we call this imagery. I'm giving you an image in your mind, trying to make you feel something or imagine something. Simile. What is simile? Simile, it's a comparison tool. So you will tell me comparison again? We were comparing a minute ago when we were talking about metaphor. Yes, right. We were comparing the exam to the breeze, if you remember. It's right. So when you're comparing something to something, we call this metaphor. So what's the difference? This is again where this is a comparison again. He's busy as a bee. So here I'm comparing this person and saying that he's busy, comparing him to the bee. So this is like, yes, this is metaphor too, but no, this is different. How it's different? I'm using this word as. So when you are using this as, or when you use like, we call it simile. If there is no as or like, we call it metaphor. Oh, now I get it. Yes, right. I slept like a log. So now I'm using like. Her face was as pale as the moon. So I'm using as. The last one, I'm comparing her face to the moon. But no, we call it simile because we're using this word excellent as, right? So when we use as or like, we call it simile. The theme. It's a very common question when I ask what the theme of the poem. The theme means the idea, the central idea. So when I ask you what's the theme, you have to tell me what's the idea of the poem. For example, your answer will be the theme is death or love or loneliness. So what do you feel the poet is, or the poem is talking about? Personification. Again, this is another comparison. Like, yes, excellent metaphor. We said that this is we compare. And again, excellent is like simile. But this is different. How? I'll tell you. Check the example. The star danced. Here I'm comparing the stars. Excellent. To what? I'm imagining the stars as if they were people dancing. And here I'm giving the stars the image of a person or some people who are dancing. Comparing the stars to person. That's what we call it personification. I got it now. So when we compare something to a person, we call it personification. When we compare something to something or someone to something, we call it metaphor. But when we compare it to person, we call it personification. Another example. The run-down house appeared depressed. A house depressed. How? Of course, depressed means the hopeless. Someone who has no hope in anything, feeling that he's unsuccessful person. Can be. So I cannot describe a house as a depressed person. So when you compare a house to a person, we call it personification.